Welcome back to the Mindset Map podcast with me, Rachel. I'm so excited to introduce you to a brand new feature of this podcast called the Resilient Mindset Series. Now, I believe a resilient mindset is one of the key elements to a successful business owner, if not perhaps the most important. So, what exactly is a resilient mindset? How can we develop one? And why is it just so important? Now, in this series of podcast episodes, each month, I'm going to be interviewing a truly inspiring female business owner who has overcome adversity, managed failures, dealt with grief, heartbreak, disappointment, setbacks, but still standing, still working towards their goals, and if anything, are all the stronger for it. I defy you not to be inspired and uplifted by these women's stories, and I cannot wait to share them with you. And what a way to kick off this brand new series than with my first incredible guest, Naomi Holbrook. Known as the Midlife Transformation Mentor, Naomi is a certified nutrition and weight management coach and best-selling co-author whose passion is empowering busy women to revolutionize their happiness, health, and hormones so they embrace the best half of their lives. Now, after many turbulent and traumatic teenage years during and after her mum's premature death, Naomi went on to create a successful 21-year career for herself in the luxury, hospitality, and wellness industry. From the age of 39, she transformed her own life from clinically obese, battling chronic pain, chronic illness, and clinical depression to become the happiest, healthiest, and most fulfilled version of herself that she is now. Her personal background in overcoming obstacles, building resilience, and creating her own confidence and self-belief have made her a go-to in the wellness industry for inspiring and empowering other midlife women to follow suit and go on to create and live the lives they always dreamed of. Naomi has become an Amazon best-selling co-author in March 2022, has been published in various UK publications, Grazia, Health and Wellbeing, Natural Health, and Marie Claire, and is in the process of writing her first book, which will be published autumn 2024. I am so happy to have Naomi on the Mindset Map podcast. When I read Naomi's application to be a guest in this series, it actually brought tears to my eyes, and I know that Naomi was exactly the person to get this series started. So, without further ado, Naomi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks for such a lovely introduction.
You are welcome. It is quite a journey you've been on yourself, quite a transformation. I'm just so excited to dive in, and I would love to kind of start back to your childhood and ask you sort of about what was life like when you were a kid. I mean, how old were you when you say you first started facing some significant challenges in your life?
Yeah, well, childhood was idyllic from the point of view of I grew up in a beautiful seaside village in North Devon, loving and caring mum and dad, an older sister, a golden retriever, all the ideal kind of, family upbringing, really, really safe environment and everything else. But I did struggle from a young age with school. And I also struggled from a young age with my health. I had whooping cough when I was born, which led to lots of respiratory problems, immunity problems. So even from, a young age, I was having a lot of time off school with asthma, with bronchitis, with, all sorts of those childhood immunity infections that you just struggle to fight. And it really, really impacted on my schooling. I found school really difficult, really hard, found it very, very difficult to learn, as well as going to a private school. My parents paid for me to have private tuition throughout the school holidays, the weekends, just purely to get me through each school year. So I can only say that even from a child, life felt like it was a struggle, a challenge. I saw my friends kind of having weekend play dates with their friends, and I was kind of at home working with private tutors to sort of, get me through to the next school term.
And how did that feel? I can only imagine sort of as a child seeing, like you say, your friends out there playing and you're working hard. Like, how did that feel when that was happening for you?
Stressful, even though as a child, I guess you don't really understand the feelings and the emotions of stress. When I look back now and sort of put myself back into that, that little girl, just that feeling of stress and overwhelm, and probably back then already having a lot of anxious thoughts of, not being good enough, struggling to keep up, being at the back of the class, all those different things. So yeah, even looking back now, I feel that it was it left me feeling quite insignificant, but also feeling like I was constantly trying to, achieve something that actually I felt was completely unachievable.
Mm. And did you develop a sort of, was there a sense of injustice, like this was unfair?
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of my life feeling that life was unfair.
Mm.
But I think also, even as an adult, that was probably quite a victim mentality. As a child, I don't think you can, you can't understand that, you can't comprehend it, you can't sort of take that responsibility for it. But yeah, I think I did. But I felt certainly an unfairness with all the kind of, health problems that I had. I definitely felt that there was some unfairness there.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And that's it's a tough pill to swallow as a kid as well, because you kind of want life to be sunny and easy and but I'm interested in what your take on that is now, looking back, in terms of how we as a society now treat our children, because I think that there's certainly an argument that we're perhaps a little bit too protective of our kids these days. We don't allow them to feel those difficult emotions. Like, what's your take on that now?
Well, I think I probably look at things as a different viewpoint. I'm child-free by choice,
Mm,
didn't have children. And so I guess I don't look at this from a parent perspective. I look at this purely from a healthy adult
mm,
who went through a lot of challenges as a child. And I do not blame my parents one bit, because I know that all they ever wanted for me was the best. Hence, as well as a private education, also having sort of additional education on top of that. But I feel that, and I certainly know, from friends that have children of that sort of age now that are at school, I think that, there is a lot of that can actually be quite damaging
mm,
to put children under that amount of pressure. And I think there is a fine balance. Like you said, is it you wrap them up in cotton wool and, it's fine. Don't sort of, don't push yourself too much or anything like that. But I think there has to be that sort of fine balance. But,
yes.
and especially now there are so many additional learning needs. And actually, I truly believe that I probably had a lot of learning needs at that age
Mm,
that
mm,
weren't identified, that weren't
mm,
supported, that weren't helped. But I think there has to be a fine balance, in so much as, yes, children pushing themselves and applying themselves, but also to push them too much in one area can have a really, really compounding, impact on
mm.
their life.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I think it's, as a parent myself, I find it a very difficult balancing act to get
Yeah.
that juggle on that line. Like you say, it's a tricky one, but we live and learn, and we're not perfect, and we're always going to kind of make mistakes, and just keep going forward with that. But it is an interesting one. But I I'd love to know, sort of, obviously you've had many challenges in your life throughout the years. Would you say there was ever kind of one moment that you could pinpoint that you would say no more, like something has to change, or was it more of a subtle change for you?
Yeah, I think there have been many pivotal points in my life, but they've
Mm,
been there have been sort of fairly significant ones. So 20 so when I was 39, so 2014 was when I had that pivotal moment about my health. I was clinically obese, had been yo-yo dieting since I was really sort of 13, 14 years old, had dreadful, body image growing up.
mm,
And at 39, I was so unhealthy and so unhappy. And that was my moment of my kind of health transformation. Enough is enough. I'm not going through another New Year's resolution of I will lose weight and I will this, that, and the other. And then I guess my other really huge one that's had the biggest impact on my life was 2016, when on the 8th of January, I walked out of my 21-year career. I didn't have a plan B. I'd resigned before the Christmas holiday because I had just got to a point where my mental health was at rock bottom. I had been covering up depression and panic attacks for so many years. It had just worn away at me. And I'd been in survival mode. If I'm honest, I'd
Mm,
probably been in survival mode since being a teenager,
yes.
and 30 years of survival mode, whilst people saw on the outside this successful career woman, this independent, kind of single woman who'd, bought her own home and done all these things on her own. Inside, I felt absolutely on the edge, on the brink all the time. And so I think that was another huge moment in my life. The enough is enough. I cannot do this anymore. Something has to change.
And it takes so much to break out of something like that, doesn't it? You we have a life that we know, and everything is easy in a way, although it can be a very stressful career, and we know that it's not right for us, and it's not healthy, but it's the comfort zone, isn't it? And it's having that courage to step out of that. I think sometimes the courage comes out of desperation. I don't know if that's sort of how you experienced it.
Oh, completely and utterly. You have just hit the nail on the head there. It was complete desperation. It was, if I don't do this, what is the alternative? And you're right. We're designed to be kept in our comfort zone. And, whilst a career might be stressful, you're thinking, gosh, yeah, I know, but there's, it's a good salary, and it's, I'm going to use that word safe. But of course, we
Yeah.
all found out in the pandemic that actually there is
That's
such
no
thing as a
safe.
safe job or a safe career.
Yeah.
And there are no guarantees in life. And
No.
yeah, you're right. That choice really happened out of desperation. And I think, if I'm honest, that's also kind of where my health transformation started. It was that I just it happened when I turned 39, and it was like, I do not want to be like this at 40, that real
Mm.
desperation. And I think that is when, quite often, the real action taking happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I I used to say to people sometimes, like, if you learn to listen, the universe gives us little nudges. But I certainly have experienced this myself, of ignoring those nudges. And if you ignore those nudges for long enough, you get smacked over the head. That's how I see it.
I totally agree. And funny, I kind of have a similar thing that I've said before, but I said, listen to the universe, she's whispering. And if you don't listen, she's going to start screaming. And, I say it to women all the time, obviously, in my business, where they come to me because they're unhappy in their health, their relationship, probably their wealth, their career, everything. And
Mm.
it's like they've been driving a car that's had all these warning signs on the dashboard, but just ignoring all of them. Um,
Yes.
and then at some point, like you say, at some point, we've ignored all those signs for so long that something catastrophic happens, or
Yeah.
we have to take control and make that huge decision. And it's really interesting you use the word courage, because so many people said to me when I walked out of my career, you're so brave. There was no bravery whatsoever. It wasn't brave. You're right. It was that moment of, I've just got to put some courage behind this, and I've just got to make a conscious decision and do something.
Yeah. But interestingly, though, there is actually, when you look, if you think back, like, that is actually brave, but you don't feel it at the time, because, like you say, all you feel is the desperation. But there are so many people in desperate situations, but they still do not have that. I think it is courage. They don't have that, whatever it needs to step out of that, even though they feel so desperate in their situation. There has to be something that tips you over the edge, doesn't it? So what happened next? You left this career, you had no plan B. Like, talk me through what happened next after that.
Yeah, no plan B, two mortgages on my own. People said I was having a midlife crisis, and you know what? I refer to it now as my midlife awakening. There was no
Amazing.
there was no crisis happening. It was, now everything that I know with the work that I've done, but also with, the ladies that I mentor and coach, I had outgrown that life. I needed more. I needed more in my life. I needed to expand. I was very, very naive, though, for a woman who had been in, business for 21 years, who had, got a successful career, been independent, and everything else. Very naive. I thought, I'm going to leave my career, and all of a sudden something's just going to sort of like fall out of the sky. But I took a little bit of time to figure out what I wanted to do, because my question to myself then was, what can I do for the next 25 years that I am excited to get out of bed in the mornings, that I don't feel like I need to escape the life from. I don't need holidays or anything else. And I'd already obviously, been on my own health transformation journey. And at that point, I was like, I want to help other women. So I requalified, I retrained as a certified nutrition and weight management coach, but also I had mortgages to pay. So I, took on a part-time job as a courier driver. I set up a pet sitting business. I literally for 3 years worked 7 days a week. I took 1 weekend off a year for my birthday to catch, to see my friends. I didn't go on holidays. I didn't go on nights out. I just literally was like, the only way I can create the life that I want is to remove some things from this current life. I couldn't live the lifestyle that I had from, booking all these holidays and nights out and girls' brunches and all those things. So I kind of used that time to really, really knuckle down on my business, but also to work on myself, to undo things that had been programmed from a teenager, from losing my mum, from sort of 7 years of watching her with chronic illness and then subsequently dying. I had a lot of unbecoming to do. So it's a lot of what I did when I left my career. I worked hard to kind of keep everything paid, but I also at the same time looked at it as a chance to not fix myself, but to work on the things that had impacted me for all my life, because I was just repeating the same cycles, the same behaviors, whether it was in my relationships, whether it was in my career. And in the last 6 years of my career, I probably moved to 3 different companies. I should have seen the signs then that I was so unsettled that I kept like moving to another company, but it was just the same stuff, different name over the door. And nothing changed. And so at that point, I was like, this is where I now have to make significant changes, or it's just going to be the same patterns, the same behaviors for the rest of my life.
I think you're so right. I think we know there needs to be a change in our life, but it's like, what is that change? And very often we don't know until we make a few of the wrong changes and we think, yep, that didn't do it. That didn't do it. And so often it's something at a much deeper level. So at what point would you say, were you kind of aware in your life of the effect that your own mindset had on your own life? Like, is it something you've always been aware of, or is it something that came later?
No, and the irony is, Rachel, up until 2019, I didn't really know that you could change your mindset. And I kind of look back now and think, how did I not know that as a grown adult? And people used to say that I was a really positive person, and I was externally, as in, always like cheerleading everybody, supporting everybody, the yes woman, the people pleaser. But internally, the conversation was different. I spoke to myself appallingly. The inner dialogue was destructive. It was self-sabotage, and it had been like that for years and years. 2016, I left my corporate career. 2019, I hired my first business mentor and coach, because like I said, I was naive. And for the first 3 years of, leaving corporate, I thought I was just going to rock up on LinkedIn, tell everybody I'd, retrained, and I was now this certified nutrition and weight management coach. And my inbox was just going to fill up, and it didn't. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And it's when I reached out to my first business mentor and started a program, and that opened my eyes, because, there were things in there. And whilst I didn't necessarily learn a huge amount about starting my online business, I learned a huge amount about managing myself and starting to look at my beliefs and, money mindset and all those different things. And ironically, at the time that I started with my new business mentor, I also had what I describe as a nervous breakdown. It was my absolute lowest point in 28 years of sort of battling depression. And it actually happened on the 25th anniversary of my mum's death. And you said this a minute ago about how we sometimes know that we need change, but we either put it off because we think it's going to be so huge, or we don't know where to start.
Yes.
And I had put off dealing with trauma and unhealed grief and all those things for the best part of 28, 29 years, because I was scared. I was scared of opening Pandora's box. I was scared of the unknown. I was scared of what I'd learn about myself. So 2019 was the year that I really started to learn and understand that you can change your mindset, you can change your identity, you can do all these things. And here we are, sort of coming up for, I guess, in the 5th year of that. And it's still evolving.
Sure.
I'm still changing that mindset. I'm still, growing that and changing my identity. But yeah, up until 4 years, up until 2019, I didn't even know it was a thing that you could work on your mindset, that you could change those thoughts, change those beliefs that you've had for, 40 years and make that sort of shift.
Yeah, and I think you're certainly not alone in that way. I think many people, and myself included, it was late to that party as well, of like suddenly realizing, oh my God, I can actually change this stuff. Or like you say, just not understanding why you're making the same mistakes again and again.
Yes.
Why are you stuck in these patterns of self-doubt, or these patterns of self-loathing and criticizing yourself, and all these patterns that we just accept and think that that's just what is happening for us, and that's our lot in life. And it isn't until you kind of open up to that possibility that, okay, we actually can change this. The thoughts that we have in our head become ideas, those ideas become things, and then those things become reality. And it all starts with just those little thoughts. And when we learn how to kind of change those thoughts, it has huge impact. But it's like you say, it's an ongoing process. And obviously it's a roller coaster life. I mean, certainly myself, obviously, as a mindset coach, you would think I've got it figured. I don't. I still have days where I like beat myself up about something, and then I think, oh my God, I should know better than that. But that's
You're right. We're a work in progress, and I'm really honest with my clients, and I share with them warts and all, because it's like I said to them, don't think that just because I am, who I am, and I'm mentoring you, that I also don't have those challenges. And it's why I have, my own coaches, my mentors. It's why I still check in with my therapist from time to time with, just that kind of, if I know there is somebody, a professional, who can support me, who can get me to where I want to faster, I'm going to go with them. And it's like I always say, you wouldn't service your own car. You wouldn't MOT your own car. It's the same with this up here. It's a complex, machine. It's a complex tool. And sometimes you need somebody to help you to just, figure a few things out. And you're right. We don't have it all. We don't have it all under control. We still have those moments of lack of belief, of, self-doubt. But as I always say, everybody, even the most successful business people in the world, as long as they're being honest, they will still admit to you that they still have those moments of self-doubt. The difference is what they do, whether they step into the fear or whether they run away from the fear.
You're 100% right. And I think that so often what we experience when we worry about stuff, and the fear is always, 99.999 times, it is so much worse than the reality. Yeah. And it's a case of being able to learn how to go, okay, I'm just going to have to step into this fear, because actually it's not going to be as bad as I think.
Yes. Yeah. And when you've got the evidence, I used to catastrophize over everything, every little thing, overthink it. Oh my gosh, the worst that's going to happen, fear of the unknown. And one thing I always say to my clients is, you need evidence. You need evidence that when you do step into that fear, when you do step out of your comfort zone, when you do take that courageous action, you have proof that you achieved it. And then the next time you go to do it, just go back and remember that in your mind. Remember that feeling, remember that emotion, and remember that when you take the action, you get rewarded from it. But it's like anything, the more you practice it, the more you train that muscle.
Yes,
easier it becomes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and it is a muscle, and it is something that we have to just keep at. I mean, you don't go to the gym and do one sit up and expect to have a six pack, and it's the same with our mindsets and with our confidence and self-belief. It is something that little by little over time we build that up. And I think that sometimes for me takes the fear away, and it's not such a huge great big mountain to climb if you're just thinking about, okay, well, this little step every day. So tell me about when you started your business in those early days and you were sort of trying to figure it all out by yourself and not knowing. Were there times where you just were like, I'm just going to give up, this is not for me, I'm not a business owner, I cannot do this? Tell me
Yeah,
about some of those moments.
there were plenty of times. And actually, I had actually artificially left my career 3 years before. So I'd kind of had a trial run. 2013, I'd been really unhappy. I'd left my career. And again, I kind of went, oh my gosh, what next? And I did fail technically because I didn't get things off the ground as I wanted to. And actually back then I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. I was just kind of like trying to set up a business for the sake of setting up a business. And 9 months later, a corporate carrot came and dangled itself in LinkedIn. And I was just like, oh my God, yeah, this is going to be so much easier. Back to a salary, back to a pension, back to a company car, all those different things. So I actually did go back in 2013 and lasted then for like 2.5 years and was like, I am done. So yeah, technically, I did fail that time. And I've failed, like all of us as entrepreneurs and business owners, I have failed non-stop since 2016. The difference, like you said, is it's that getting back up again. So, there have been so many times in the early days, not now, but I'll kind of explain why that is. So many days in that early time where I would sit on the beach. I said to you, I live down here in Hove in East Sussex. That beach has seen so many of my tears of, oh my God, I can't do this, and I'm doing this all on my own, and I've got no backing, and I've got nobody to support me, and I'm the only one paying the bills and the mortgage. But every time I've just gone back and dug a little bit deeper, and what am I learning from this? How can I put this forwards? And also, I think when you don't have a plan B, there's no option than making plan A work. Plan B is a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, I really agree with you in that actually. Yeah, that whole kind of safety net plan B, it's a tricky one because like you say, it doesn't allow for you to go all in. And we have to go all in. I think that when you want to have a successful business and you want to do it yourself, you've got to go all in, as scary as hell as that is. For me, it's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Burn those bridges, as Tony Robbins says.
Yes, exactly.
Burn the bridges and the boats and everything else. It's the only way to do it, is to say to yourself, failure is not an option. And of course, we fail every single day. We learn, we pick ourselves back up again, and we move forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say, how do you feel about taking risks? Would you call yourself a risk taker?
I never was. I was the woman that used to, like for years would overpay on my broadband and overpay on my phone bill and overpay on my mortgage because I was like, oh, I don't want to like shift to a different product. I don't want to move to a different contract. I was completely and utterly risk adverse for years and years and years. And since 2019, since investing in that first business coach, which, was a huge investment, especially as I didn't have an income at the time. It was a massive, massive risk. But I've taken so many risks in the last 4.5 years since that in some ways, every single one has paid off, because even if it hasn't necessarily given me the return on investment in that moment, there have been things that it has given me in my self-belief, in my, in my confidence, in my courage taking, in my action taking, in all those different things. So yeah, now I am a huge risk taker. I mean, some of my friends are like, "Oh my God, you're mad! Why you?" But then they're like, "Oh my God, okay, yeah, you did that." I mean, last year I signed up to climb Mont Blanc. I know, right? I know.
Oh.
This is the woman that in 2009 had major spinal surgery and couldn't walk more than about 150 yards, couldn't get upstairs to bed, was in so much chronic pain. And the opportunity came up to, to go and climb Mont Blanc with a team. And again, a huge risk, quite a dangerous thing to do. But also last year, I ended up climbing 7 mountains to, as part of the training to do it. And
Wow.
I think now, and actually we didn't summit, we didn't make the summit of Mont Blanc, but the next day I went and did a tandem paraglide. And because I just wanted to end the trip metaphorically on a high. And again, as I was just about to jump off that side of that mountain, on this tandem paraglide, I had that moment of, who even is this woman? She wouldn't have done anything that involved risk taking or stepping out into fear or anything like that. But every time I've done it, more confidence has come, more belief in myself has come, all those different things. So I think now maybe I'm not going to use the word addiction, but I thrive on the fear. I thrive on the stepping out of my comfort zone. I thrive on taking calculated risks, not stupid risks, but, I know that you've got to take huge action sometimes for things to pay off.
I agree. And what I absolutely love about your story there is just that realization of you are a completely different person to who you were. And that is the reality. And I think that so often people think that people are just kind of, that's the way you are. You hear this all the time where they say, oh, she's a born entrepreneur, or, she's a born teacher, a born leader, a born whatever, performer. And I just think, rubbish. I honestly think that's rubbish. I think it's circumstance, it's learning, it's education, it's self-confidence, self-belief, and all of those things are movable parts, right? So there's nothing there that is fixed. You don't feel confident, you can learn to be more confident. You have self-doubt, you can learn to have self-belief. You don't have the education, you can learn the education. There's nothing that's not movable. So therefore, thinking that someone is a certain way limits us so much, because we could be whoever we want to be if we're willing to do the work. And I think that is the thing. It's like being open to that change, but also willing to put that work in.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything that you've just said there, I put those labels on myself for years. I have depression, I've got chronic pain, I have a spinal condition, I can't do this, I've got that. And the more we keep telling ourselves those things, the more the story builds in our head and the more we believe that.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. We all have the power to change our story, to, change the direction of our life. And the thing is, it's not all at once. I mean, my journey has evolved in chapters, in stages, in, 2 steps forwards, 5 back, 1 forwards. It's not linear. We know that. And I think it's why so many people put off even starting, because there's that feeling of overwhelm of, oh my gosh, where do I start? And actually, if I was doing it all again now, I'd do it completely differently because of what I've learned. But it's like you say, we all have the power to change all those beliefs that we have on ourselves and everything that we are using to limit ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it just makes it's just that possibility. I think just that feeling of that change is possible, and change is possible for me, is such a big moment for a lot of people that I would just love more women to get to. But so going back to sort of running your business, what do you find is the hardest part for you? What have you found hardest throughout your journey, business?
Oh my gosh, what isn't hard about running a business?
True.
I mean, even when the printer breaks.
Yes.
When you work in a corporate environment and you've got a finance director and you've got an IT director, what you learn about is, as a business owner, is it's you. It's all on you. Even if you have, even if you employ your VA and your various different people to support and help you in your business,
Yes.
it is all down to you. I
Mm.
think personal responsibility is probably the biggest lesson. And also the ability to say, I am the one that's preventing, this from happening, or I am the one that's blocking this growth or preventing myself from getting to this stage in my business. And I would say that, all of it, all the logistical side, the juggling, the midlife mayhem, the relocating your 90-year-old father whilst running a business and helping to manage his life and adapt him into a new community, all of that is challenging. But I think the biggest challenge that you face in your own business and as an entrepreneur is who's looking back at you in the mirror. You have to take on a whole new level of responsibility and the ability to say, I'm the problem, I'm the one that's causing this.
I could not agree with you more. Yeah. I always say to people that your own mindset is the missing piece of the puzzle when you're building a business, because, you can learn. Yeah. Okay. We don't have any of the skills when you start, right? But you can learn sales techniques and marketing tips and learn to balance your accounts and all those practical things that you need to do. But if you are not working on your own confidence, your own beliefs, things that are limiting you, that is what's going to stunt your growth. You are 100% right. And I just find it just fascinating how many people you come across who are not working on that area and then wondering why things are not moving in the direction that they want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you say, it is the biggest piece of the puzzle. If it doesn't matter if you have the right strategy, it doesn't matter if you have all those tools and everything else. If you don't have the mindset to help you to move forwards in everything, and it's not just business, it's in your health, it's in your relationships, it's in your finances, it's how we manage and master ourselves impacts every element of our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I would love to know, you've talked about your own personal transformation and, what a different woman you are now to your younger self. And I'd love to know if you could go back and sort of talk to your teenage self. Obviously, she would be quite surprised, I'd imagine, of where you are now in your life and all the things that you've achieved. What do you think your teenage self would think and of the journey that you've been on?
Gosh, that's such a great and beautiful question. And I do often think about that little girl. And it's funny, my dad says this to me quite frequently now, whenever, I have a magazine article published or something else happens. And he's just like, what happened to that little girl, that quiet, shy, lacking confidence, all those different things? I'm going to say this because this comes with no ego. This comes purely from a place of knowing and believing my self-worth nowadays. I think that she would be immensely proud. I also want to thank her because she didn't give up. As many times as she felt like it, physically, mentally, metaphorically, as much as she felt like every time she hit another obstacle, it was another sign of, you're not worthy, you're never going to get the life that you want, and you're never going to create it. She never ever gave up. So I am proud of her, but I do also believe that she is proud of me. And I think that's the other thing, is that like I said at the beginning, I spent so much of my life in survival mode. And that's why I'm so grateful to her. And I'm grateful to the teenage version of her, the 20-year version of her, the 30-year version of her, 40-year version, because she kept me safe and she helped me to survive in some, challenging and difficult times.
Mm,
But what I realized a few years ago was that survival mode is not a place to live your life.
no.
It will eventually stunt you. It will suffocate you. It will make you feel like you're, stuck and suffocating and just not flourishing in life. And so, yeah, I'm grateful to her to helping me to survive. But a few years ago, I realized that it was time to move forwards from that and start to thrive in life and create new techniques, find new tools and strategies to act in a different way and help me in a different way to move forwards.
Oh, So beautiful and so inspiring. Naomi, I could talk to you all day, but I'm aware, we've been talking for a while and I would love to end. I'm going to end all of these interviews in this resilience series with 3 final questions, which I'm going to ask all the guests the same. So as our first guest in the series, I'd love for you to kick us off. And I'm going to ask you these final 3 questions. So first question is, I would love you to complete this sentence. For you, resilience is?
Resilience is the ability to regulate your emotions and reactions healthily in the face of adversity.
Oh, love that. It's a great answer, because I always wonder with resilience whether it's more about being able to handle difficulties or more about the ability to get back up. And I think there's an element of both.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And I think it is that healthy reaction to it. I believe that I did build resilience, but in a survival mode,
Yes.
which is not sustainable, which has an exhausting impact on your nervous system. So I think for me, having found that resilience, that true resilience this last few years, I think that's where it comes from.
Incredible. Okay, and my second question is, what would you say to a woman who's listening to this episode who is currently facing setback after setback? What words of wisdom can you share with her?
The first thing I'd say is trust yourself. And that's a really difficult one, because when we are in heavy masculine energy, we're not trusting ourselves. So step into your divine feminine, how you were created. Trust yourself, listen to your gut, listen to the universe. Believe, even if you don't at that time, believe that everything will work out. And as long as you are growing, as long as you are expanding, then you're moving in the right direction. Even if you're having setbacks, even if things are coming your way. Something that I've told myself so much over these last few years is you have everything you need to handle every single thing that gets thrown at you. And I think even if you have those moments of, oh my God, am I going to make it through this? Is this going to happen? When you have that inner trust, then it's kind of like that radio station gets really dulled down and you just keep hearing that, trust that this is going to work out. So step into your feminine energy, step into that divine feminine, trust yourself. And also, affirmations. I don't use them so much now, but I used them a lot for a couple of years when I was going through a really tough patch of just saying to myself, you have everything inside you. I know one of my favorites is Mel Robbins, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
So, if it is, write an affirmation, put it on your, bathroom mirror where you clean your teeth in the morning and the evening, repeat it to yourself, put it on the steering wheel, put it on your laptop. Just keep subliminally sort of programming that messaging in your brain.
Yeah, I absolutely love affirmations. So they're so powerful. And if you can get, I always find, like, if you can get the ones that you can truly get on board with and you can truly believe, and I think you're right, the ones that are sort of like, you can do this, like, you may not believe it now, but you can do it. You have everything within you. It's just a case of tapping into it. And those are more powerful affirmations than a kind of, I am great, I am wonderful, because so often we don't truly believe it. And then we can just hear ourselves saying it and think, well, that's a load of nonsense. Like, I don't believe it. But the affirmations that feel more aligned in that this is actually possible and there's no reason why I am not capable of this are so powerful. So I love that. Love it. Okay. And my third and final question is, if you could recommend one thing to help build a resilient mindset, what would you recommend? It could be an activity, a daily practice, a book, a podcast, someone to follow. What would be a recommendation from you?
Make one commitment to yourself every day and fulfill it, no matter how small it is, how tough things get. That one commitment, and it's something I talk to my clients about so frequently, that even when we're having those tough times, if it is that you've made a commitment to yourself to get out and walk for 30 minutes every single day, or you've made a commitment to practice some gratitude, do it regardless of how you feel, regardless of what obstacles come your way, because I truly believe that that is where I have formed the self-belief, the confidence, and the resilience that I've got now. It's from doing the things that I said I would do, no matter how hard and tough things got.
Oh, what a great tip. What a great tip. You're so right. Even if it's just the smallest thing, that belief in I said I would do something and I've done it is so, so powerful. So I absolutely love that. Naomi, thank you so much for your time today. I would love for you to just share with the listeners where they can find you, how they can work with you. I will drop obviously all your links in the show notes, but please share with us how they can find you.
Absolutely. So all the usual social media platforms, like you said, you're going to put the links in, but I am on Facebook, Naomi Holbrook. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, and I have my website, which is www.wealthyevolution.com. So yes, you can find me on any of those platforms.
Amazing. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for coming on the Mindset Map podcast.